You're listening to Lifing Coast to Coast, the live stream podcast where we explore trending topics and personal development, wellness, and the art of lifing in today's ever-changing world. Join us every Saturday for insightful, relatable, and lively discussions that empower and inspire. I'm moderator Miki here with the co-hostesses with the mostesses, Dr. Lovey and Heidi.
Hello.
Heidi, what are we talking about today?
Today we're talking about anxiety.
Oh no.
Yeah. So anxiety is something that has been what a therapist once told me I was hardwired for. And I've not been afflicted for a couple of decades, honestly, by it. And I've learned more about it, certainly learning more about how to mitigate it on my own. But I had a bit of a life event last week that created a real environment for me to get back in touch with what it was like to live under an almost steady atmosphere of anxiety a long time ago. So
it's amazing that it's been that long, that you really have been in such a good place that anxiety hasn't touched you.
Yeah. I mean, in small little micro doses, I would say, just situational, but not like last week. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we're humans and we're going to have responses that are going to elicit anxiety, that are stress responses, right? But they're in short bursts usually. Yeah.
So this was a long ass burst, going to say that out loud. Particular anxiety started on Monday of last week and lasted for an entire week. Sunday, I finally got a bit of a reprieve, but Saturday was off the charts, just awful. And what I realized through doing a little research around this is some things that I felt but didn't articulate. And so I'm going to bounce around a little bit. I chose an article for this, but I don't think I'm going to read it in its entirety. I think it'd be more productive for us to pop around on this. But what was fascinating to me was that, let's just say on Saturday, I watched both Inside Out and Inside Out 2.
I haven't seen that one yet.
My favorites. Oh my gosh. I watched both of them with my grandchildren, and it is such a great, I believe in like bibliotherapy and cinetherapy, and just when you watch something or read about something, it really helps you to connect what's going on in your life, and you don't feel so alone. You don't feel like you're the only one in the world that's experiencing this. And so being able to watch that with my grandkids, it was so cool, because then it opened up this whole dialogue about emotions and how they're not bad or good, and how some are more uncomfortable than other ones. And anxiety is very real. And in that movie, it starts at, I think, preteen age, but children nowadays are experiencing anxiety at very young ages. So yeah, I love that. Love that you brought that up, Heidi.
I know. So through Inside Out 2, the introduction of anxiety, the way that they described it through the character in the film was eye-opening for me. It was like, oh my God, it is there to protect me in a way, to plan for the uncertainty and whatever. I have a little doc that I created. I'm just going to read some of this on it so people who may also struggle with anxiety can relate. So I asked the role of anxiety in Riley's mind to ChatGPT. And because I understood it from the film, but I wanted to contextualize it really clearly here today. So it's future-oriented thinking, unlike the emotions Joy, which is the main character, who focuses on the present, sadness, who focuses on the past. Anxiety is constantly thinking ahead, trying to predict and prevent problems before they happen, helping ostensibly to stay prepared, right? But the primary goal to stay safe with anxiety, it often overcompensates for us, right? It micromanages our thoughts and our decisions, making us feel overwhelmed rather than empowered. and the conflict with other emotions. So anxiety's excessive planning and worrying put the character, Riley, in her mind, anxiety was at odds with joy and believing that if we're not constantly on high alert, that things will go wrong, and leading to the tension and all the other sort of experiences that we have when we're in anxiety. So it was really interesting to me that I was unaware of a lot of the physical things and what to do about them, right? So, anxiety, I learned, can be helpful and an overwhelming force. And it can keep us prepared and motivated. I now get that it has a specific function, which helps me deal with it, to be honest, knowing that. Okay, what can I actually prepare for? And then let go of the rest. But what I experienced this past week was paralysis. All right. So I was down for the count in so many ways. And so I recognized after doing this research that what I really learned was that it had shut me down and it was debilitating. And I was like, okay, now what? What do I do when I'm shut up by it completely? And it's like, there are steps and things that we can do, grounding and all of that stuff. But for me, I think, and I've known all those things. And I remember asking you, Dr. Lovey, what do I do or what do you do? And you're like, oh, I jumped on my rebounder and that was great. And I thought to myself, really? There's no way I could have done exercise. There's no way that I could have snap myself out of it in any of those ways. Even had I been able to take a cold shower, that might have been helpful. But so what I learned was that my system was just simply in high alert and I was shutting down and I was existing in freeze, literally existing in freeze. And so it gave me some clues about how to, if you can't do the obvious things, just simple things like wiggling your fingers and toes to signal your body that you're safe, or gently rocking back and forth, or pacing slowly. I learned about shaking from you. You know what I mean? I learned the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 grounding exercise from you, which is name 5 things you can see, 4 things you can touch, 3 things you can hear, 2 that you can smell, and 1 that you can taste. But I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep, all of that. So what I learned was liquids. Just have some broth, have a smoothie. Tiny bites are enough. For sleeping, not to pressure myself to sleep, just to focus on resting, listening to calming music, and lying down simply with my eyes closed gave me relief. And then I tried progressive relaxation, tensing first my toes and my feet, and then releasing, going all the way up to the top of my head in that way. And then this really helped me. So when the thoughts are chaotic, you don't need to fix them. You just gently redirect. So I created a mantra for safety. I am safe right now. I'm allowed to rest. That's simple. I reassured my future self, right? Through my future self, you will get through this. Things will settle. And then I set a tiny goal for myself because I was trying so hard to do the deep breathing. And the tiny goal was, I just need to take 1 deep breath, just 1. Right? And then reaching out, even in small ways. My husband, God love him, has never experienced anxiety. He doesn't even know what that is. So I asked my husband to rub my shoulders, but he wasn't doing that properly. So then I asked him to rub my feet. And that was super comforting. And then my final thought that really helped me was my body isn't betraying me. It's just overwhelmed and trying to protect me. And I didn't need to force myself out of it. I just needed to gently remind my nervous system that I was safe. And even though I didn't feel relief right away, every little tiny action, every little tiny thought shift that I did helped me to create a momentum that ultimately relieved me of that anxiety over the course of Sunday.
Wow. So good.
Yeah. Yeah. That is really good. And it's interesting, your body's reaction, right? I said I bounced on the rebounder. I initially have the same kind of reaction as you, where I can't eat. I am more in a functional type of freeze situation. You experience an adverse event. It wasn't just an anxiety, future tripping anxiety. You were actually experiencing a threat to
Right.
your livelihood. And so you had a couple different things going on with your body. And you learned how to quiet your amygdala and you learned how to mobilize yourself, which was really awesome. And you learned to listen to the anxiety. What's it telling you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the amazing thing is that when I struggled with anxiety in the past, I was medicated. So I know the
Mhm.
instant relief you can get through medication. And I want to talk about this for a minute because I didn't have that available to me. I thought about it. I thought I would rather learn coping strategies to mitigate it naturally on my own. 3 days in, I realized that was a really bad idea. I wished I would have gotten in to see somebody because I didn't think it would be that prolonged and protracted. But by then, I couldn't get in to see anybody for a week anyway. So it was, here you are. Now, what do you do? That said, chances of me going through another event like this anytime soon are slim to none. But I am going to go to that appointment and get something to put in my medicine cabinet should it ever happen again. So extremely. Do you know what I mean? Like you said, it was a big one. It wasn't just a little blip, it was major.
Yeah.
Interesting you talk about the functional freeze because I don't really think I experience that whenever I'm anxious. I do the overcompensating, I move. And really, sometimes what helps me when you were talking about giving yourself a hug and tapping and all the things, something that helps me with move through my anxiety is to have a temper tantrum and
Wow.
a lot of like vocal like grunts. And because I'm not a violent person, but I
Mhm.
think that that really helps if I'm just like hitting a pillow, dropping stuff, going, no. And then just like that kind of helps me stop. And then I can move through.
Yeah. That is a very, when you are in the mobilized state of a threat response or having anxiety, it is a very effective tool to get the energy out of yourself. And if there is anger involved, if you're not a rager, to be able to hit a Bobo doll or smash something or nobody's in danger, you're not intimidating anybody, that type, not that kind of throwing
Throw.
things, but being able to hit a pillow or scream into a pillow. I've even worked with a patient before and gave them 5 minutes and they wanted to stop. They didn't want to do it anymore, but having them go through it for 5 minutes and just punch the pillow, yell, scream, go through that whole thing, it really helped mobilize the suppressed and the repressed stuff
Yeah.
that was going on in them. When my husband and I have a heated discussion, we don't really argue. It can get energized. We'll go for a walk with each other. And as we're walking, it helps get the energy out and it helps us to communicate easier. And we learned that like early on. It wasn't on purpose, it was something that happened accidentally. And we're like, this works really well. Walking while we are discussing things that are really intense.
That's so cool. So then would you recommend? So what I do is this. I just want to get as close and as cozy and as fetal position as I can. In fact, on that Saturday morning, the worst day, my husband was leaving to go off for a man day, and I was in the fetal position while standing in the kitchen filling my water bottle with electrolyte stuff. And he said, "Are you okay?" And I said, "No, I haven't been okay all week." And he's, "You look awful." And I said, "I'm so anxious." And as I said, he's never felt anxiety. And his go-to, of course, was, "Baby, everything's going to be okay." And I'm like, I do know that intellectually, but my body has not caught up with that thought yet. So my question to you, Dr. Lovey, is I just want to get on the couch, get cuddled. I got all my bed pillows out on the couch. I got as cocooned as I possibly could. What you're saying is maybe I should have forced myself to walk or
No,
punch. No? Okay.
no, because I won't get too scientific about it. For so long, we thought that And it is the autonomic nervous system is binary, but it's not. There's more levels to it. And for so long we thought that it's either resting and digesting or fight or flight. We also see, though, we see this in animals in the wild, and we see this with human beings, that there's also this freeze state. And when you're in a freeze state, you are immobilized. When you are in a fight or flight state, you are mobilized. So you're going to have the heart rate's going to go up. You're going to not be able to hear voices, speech as clearly. You're going to hear the low frequency noises and even some of the high frequency noises, because when you hear birds chirping, it means you're safe. When you hear earthquake, it's a low frequency. When you hear lions roar, it's a low frequency. Your immune system is going to go down. There's just all these things that happen when you are mobilized in fight or flight. Unfortunately, when you are going to give a speech and you're having this reaction, it's going to cause you to sweat. It's going to cause your mouth to get dry, all these things, because you don't have anywhere to run to, or you don't have anybody to fight, right? So you have to get that energy out somehow. So going and bouncing on the rebounder or screaming into a pillow, doing things like that's important. It's normal for us to have these ups and downs into being socially engaged and in this place of resting and digesting, or even if we're doing sports, it's still a social engagement area. And it's normal to go up and down in that back and forth. And I think the example that I've given before is, if I'm going to my grandkids' house, I'm not driving, so I'm in a really socially engaged, resting state. My husband's driving, and then I hear a woo, woo behind us.
Yeah.
I'm going to go into sweating. My heart rate's going to go up. I'm going to be in a fight or flight. And then once the cops pass me by, I'm going to go down. That's normal. That's what our bodies do. We go through that.
It's protecting you.
Yes.
It's just telling you information.
Yes.
Incoming.
When somebody has been exposed to so many of those incidences, and also when somebody has experienced being stuck and not being able to run or not being able to fight. That could be being a child or being more of a submissive, or in a position where you're victimized in some kind of way and you can't fight, you can't flee. That's experienced as a trauma, whether it's consciously recognized as that way or not. Our bodies go into more of an immobilized state, to where we freeze. And a lot of times we'll hear people say the possum was playing dead. No, the possum was not playing dead. Its body shuts down to die. It's preparing to die. And so all of the organs slow down. Everything just slows down. And sounds like that's what happens with you when you've had all of these micro stress situations build up, and then you have this big thing that happens. It could be a result of something that's happened in the past that puts you there, but you were in an immobilized state, and you needed to know that you were safe and secure, and you nurturing yourself, you holding yourself, you rocking. That's what you needed. I think that's beautiful that you listen to your body that way.
Yeah. And now that I have the awareness that I can comfort myself in that way and just be like, you know what? I'm safe. I'm just going to lay here. It was interesting because while watching those two movies, I did ultimately fall asleep twice, which is highly unusual for me. I'm not surprised because I was so sleep deprived, but highly unusual for me. I'm not someone who is able to sleep during the day, no matter what. It's just a thing for me. So then I woke up at one point and I was like, oh my God, I slept. And it was like a victory. It felt amazing to know that I had relaxed enough by being comfortable enough and to fall asleep. And that you know what that gave me was hope. I was like, okay, it's getting better. Yeah. It was very interesting. And in my adult life, I had never gone through anything like that before because I got medicated for it and I never experienced the full extent. So that was fascinating to be on the other side of that.
And you also learned that you have everything that you need within you to get to the state where you are in your window of tolerance, where you are socially engaged, where you are, that you're able to bring yourself to that place of resting and digesting.
Yeah.
So feeling like you can't move is not a bad thing. It just means that your body is needing to protect yourself.
Yeah, for anyone who struggles with this in an ongoing way, I hope that you have seen the movie Inside Out, too, in particular.
Number
Both
one.
are amazing. See them both if you can. But if you feel like you need to shut down, then go ahead and do it. Now that I have a permission slip, I know how to take care of myself in a whole new way. So that, yeah.
And you gave yourself the message that you're safe, that you're secure. And in that movie, I'm a good person, right? Those messages, those affirmations that that part of herself knew, that told her, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now I have to go watch Inside Out.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm kidding.
Have you seen either one of them?
I've seen the first one. I haven't seen the second yet, so I have to get in there.
Such a, it's, you can imagine, but it's so good.
This is off top. Didn't you just love nostalgia?
Oh, that was the best.
It's not time for you yet.
Nostalgia. Oh my gosh, I don't want to blow it for Miki, but
I
for
know.
those of you listening
Spoilers.
who saw this, yeah, nostalgia.
She should have been done watched it by now.
Yeah.
There's gonna
I'm
be
late.
spoilers.
I hope there's an Inside Out 3 because I know nostalgia is going to be my favorite character.
My gosh. That would be so funny. This was a great conversation. I loved this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Lifing Coast to Coast. Join us every Saturday for insightful, relatable, and lively discussions that empower and inspire.